how do you do something completely new now?
Well, you either got to find something naive enough to offer you to do the project. And, you know, when I was offered to work with BST, with the electric bike, that was an opportunity. And it all was a bit unfortunate because they actually had investors standing by to produce the bike. And after we'd done the bike, that kind of fell through. COVID happened, the investment didn't come in, so the bike is a little bit stuck there. But that was an opportunity, once in a lifetime opportunity for a designer to go and do something totally new and, you know, do something fresh with a new technology. And that was fun. And, you know, if they never build it, that's okay. At least I didn't do a new Royal Enfield that looks like an old Royal Enfield, whatever. It looks like some old Honda or Triumph or something. You know, at least it was something fresh.
What is the current status with the BST? Is it going forward, or
well, currently it's standing in the boardroom. I think it's standing in the boardroom.
Okay.
Unless there's investment, and I mean, you know, people forget about electric bikes. There's a huge lot of technology in there that's new. I mean, Harley Davidson with the Livewire took 7 years to develop that, and they still had a recall 3 months, 4 months in because of the charging system. So it's not as easy as buying 5 Duracells in a little RC motor and sticking in the bike. You know, there's a lot of complication there. And none of the components are really made for a motorcycle. You know, they're all huge components. That's why they've got these Samsonite suitcases or Rimowa suitcases with cake tins on them. You know, it's all stuff they found in a shed somewhere. You know, it probably will get better when somebody big takes it over, like something like a Honda or a huge company has got all the resources. You know, design the engines purposely. You know, Triumph have done something recently. Great technology, and they've managed to make it look like a cousin of a 1970s motorcycle, but, you know, maybe that's what the clients want. You know, it's like a Tesla. I mean, fantastic technology. And I know they were clever by making it look like a Hyundai. You took the badge off. It could have been anything, you know. I drove past the first ones and I didn't know what it was till down the road. I thought, okay, was that a Tesla? It didn't stand out. It's just this anonymous thing with and then you look inside of it, it's got like a Chinese screen stuck in the middle somewhere with touch screen that's totally unergonomic and silly. But I guess for a normal person, it's like, shows modernity or something, you know.
But then enter the Cybertruck, and it's completely 180 to their first cars. I mean, it's
well, you think about it this way: they were their leading edge technology. If they did something really modern initially, they would have lost the client. Okay, if they'd introduced a new technology and new styling, they would have lost it. Now what they've got all these fanboys. If Elon Musk if he took a 44-gallon drum, stuck 4 wheelbarrow wheels on it, and made it last 1 million kilometers and did 0 to 60 in 1.2 seconds, you'd have fanboys all over the world swooning and buying them. They'll put their deposit on straight away. I mean, that Cybertruck is like a 16-year-old kid's first drawing of a car done with their left hand. Okay? And God bless them. You know, it's a party trick. Not really design. You know, it's kind of, I guess, the most cynical showmanship that you can have. You're selling some people who they're looking for you know, I don't know, maybe they're not that well endowed, but they're looking for this thing that's 14 meters long and they can't even fit in a garage in a house. They're too big. I've got friends in America that can't park their pickup trucks in their garage because they're not tall enough. You know, so they park them outside. In the winter, they take the wheels off and put little wheels on so they'll roll into the garage when the snow comes. That's where we at.
Yeah, no, it's pretty
No, so-
ridiculous. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, look, it is what it is. I think the Cybertruck is the extreme of going over the top and doing this. It's like the flamethrower they did. No, well, cool. No, which guy doesn't want a flamethrower? Everyone wants a flamethrower.
Especially in Joburg at the traffic lights.
Yeah, what do you want to do with it? Nobody knows, but hey, you want one, right? So hey, the Cybertruck. But I still think all those Teslas are pretty boring looking. I don't think they're particularly nice looking cars. And I think the chief designer there did some wonderful things before. So I don't know. I think they're competently boring. Maybe that's the way to put it. Maybe I'm being overly critical, but I think the Polestars are much nicer bit of design work.
Yeah, I mean,
The interior.
Yeah, I mean, not maybe that anybody wants to hear, but my stance on it is that for the most part, I agree with you. I think the cars in general are not, from a design aspect, they're okay. You know, there's nothing really emotive about it. But
totally competent,
yes.
Beautifully competent, boringly competent. That's what they are.
But the thing is, Pierre, like I don't know. I wouldn't say that I'm a fanboy, but I love the kind of the ecosystem that they've built, and I love his story, and that's something. And also, there's a bit of a South African bias to me as well, even though he doesn't really, I don't know, identify as South African. But
you're right. I mean, yeah, okay, he's South African. He's built an ecosystem, but the car is still boring. You can't look beyond it. Look, if you stand back and you're really honest with yourself, are you really, really honest? You say, is that great design? No.
No, I agree.
Not.
I agree with you.
So I can say it because I don't work for a company.
Yes.
I'm 65 years old and I don't care what people think of what I say. I'm just saying it because you asked me.
Yeah, no.
I think it's a shame. It's a shame because their chief designer, the guys are fantastic.
Yes. Yeah.
You know, the only electric thing I've seen recently that I really like, and then people will laugh at me, was the Canoe pickup truck.
Yeah, it's mega. It's great.
Yeah, I thought, wow, somebody's done something really cool with electric, and I'd buy that. And then people say, "Yo, what do you know? You're just an old guy." I said, "Well, yeah, but I want one of those because it's cool."
Yeah.
And I don't think the other ones are cool. Ford have done their new pickup truck. Very predictable. They don't want to offend anybody. They don't want to lose their existing clientele. They actually want it to be a pickup truck, so it's actually a practical thing, unlike the Cybertruck, which is a kiddie's toy. And, but why can't they be more like the Canoe?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, if you're talking from a design point of view, the Canoe's awesome, and I love everything that they're doing. I know a couple of guys that work there, so I couldn't agree with you more.
Yeah, well, yeah, that's. I mean, I wish every time I go to the Milan show, I go with my friend Adrian Morton, and he said he was depressed every time he goes there. He kind of feels depressed because the stuff's not that great. And I said, well, you've got to thank your lucky stars every time you go there and things are not so great. Then they'll still maybe employ you for a while longer. If everything was so wonderful, then we wouldn't have a job.
Yeah, it's true. It's very true.
I don't know if you know the Husqvarna stuff, the Vitpelen.
Yes.
And the Stadpelen. Okay.
Yeah.
Now, that was fresh and new. I mean, bikes that have stood out in the last 20 years are few and far between. And it's always nice to see something fresh, but I see they've rewarmed that up now for all their new bikes. So that formula will now be applied for the next 12 years. It'll be like a Range Rover.
Sure.
They do the Evoque, and then after the Evoque, what do you do?
Yeah.
What's your next party trick?
Yeah.
You stick 2 cardboard boxes on the side of your new truck, on your new SUV. We know why they did that, but yes. I guess somewhere in Coventry or somewhere, somebody puts their use it a letterbox. What is that?
I had no idea, but it could be a good letterbox. You could get big parcels.
It could take eighth too.
Yeah,
So-
or it could take LP records as well. Could be like a
Exactly.
CD player. Yeah.
No, yeah.
So, Pierre, I think like I mean, I don't really want to repeat any of the same questions that you've been asked a million times before, but I guess I definitely need to just touch on the bikes that you're really well known for, like the MH900, for example.
Yeah.
Can you just like fairly to the point, because I don't want to take up too much more of your time, but just talk a little bit about how that project came about.
Okay. So the project came about due to management incompetence, basically, first of all. Okay. And then I'll explain this all very carefully. Okay. So every designer out there knows that if there's a show for next year, so when you finish this year's show in November, the logical thing would be to do the next show bike starting maybe in a month or two. No. 3 months before, they all wake up from their MBA-ness and their Procter & Gamble-ness and their deep studies they've done and go, oh shit, we don't have a bike for the show. What do we do now? Okay, so what happened was, Federico Manoli woke up one morning and said, oh my goodness me, I've got to report back to TPG. They spend a lot of money in Ducati. We've got nothing to show for Cologne. And he came to me and I said, look, okay, I know I've got a bike I can do. I had this thing in my drawer. I'd been drawing it for 15, 12 years. So I had a lot of sketches done already. I knew what I would do. I love the MH. I love the Mike Hayward original. And I said, but the only thing is, no one in this company should know about this. Because the minute these guys know about the bike, there is no chance in hell that we can get it done in 3 months. So probably about 6 months before, I'd worked on the 900 SS in actually Futura design in Birmingham.
Oh, wow.
And I through a friend of mine, I think Simon Cox told me about it. I went to see AKA Design in Hitchin. Now, AKA Design was the first company that built a modern clay milling design studio. And people probably don't even remember them or know about them. And the guy who was running was called Paul Critchley. Now, I went to see them. They had built a wonderful studio, a gantry, in an old building. And you basically could machine a car in the one corner, a dashboard in the other corner. The machine would just follow it. And they did everything on Alias, and it was all done on CAD. So the MHE was going to be done quickly, and it was going to be a study in design methodology. So basically, we're going to see what the hell can you do with this new stuff. So I think we did the first motorcycle all done on Alias and all machined in clay. And that was done a long, long, long time ago. I think BMW took 12 years to then do that again later. So I had 3 months to do the bike, and 3 people in the company knew about it. Me, the guy called David Gross who handled the finance. I said, if I have to do this, I can't worry about who pays for the toilet paper and orders the bits and pieces. Take care of it. So David was the one that made sure that the contracts were done, the finances were done, everything else. I said to them, we're not ordering parts from Ducati itself because they'll never arrive. So we dealt with a local importer. And if we ordered a part before 9 in the morning, we'd have it after lunch. They would drive it down and we'd get it. So, and this is what people don't understand. When you do something in that shorter time frame, you can't wait even 2 hours. You have to get on with it. So we had local machine shops. There was a guy with a wonderful machinist. He had machines that were older than, the pyramids. Hand milling machines from before the First World War, Second World War. He did a wonderful work. So I would leave my job, work on the 999, and on a Friday afternoon, 5:30, I would fly to Luton.
Ah, okay.
Spend the weekend there, stay in the I remember the Red Bull pub we used to go to once in a while. I'll stay in a little hotel there, and then Sunday night, 10 o'clock, I'd fly back, and I'd get back to Italy just before midnight to do my normal day job the next day. Nobody knew. The frame was designed in Holland by a guy called Hans Oosterhoff, who's a brilliant engineer who worked on lots of suspension with Subaru. I think his suspension won like 5 world championships. He's a great guy. And we didn't have computers, and we didn't have the internet. So I would send him a fax with a drawing of the frame, sketched, send it to him. He would do it on AutoCAD, send me a fax back. I'd okay it and make it. But not in 16 months like they do now. The frame would take 10 days, would be done, sitting there. And then they would then get in a truck and drive to England and deliver it personally. It wasn't like FedEx would then, you know the normal way.
Yeah.
You call FedEx, so then you put it in, and then sometimes it gets there, and then they'll get it wrong, and they'll send it back. So 4 cycles later, and 4 months later, you haven't done it yet. So I would fly over there, and then my August holiday, I took the whole holiday and I went over there and I did the work. So we did the bike in record time. I actually, to get the bike painted, I had to bribe a fantastic painter's wife by sending her flowers and chocolates to borrow her husband for one evening. She said, you have him for one evening. So I got somebody to drive me to Birmingham. And in 2 days, plus a night, a guy called Wayne Saunders from Futura painted the bike, which actually was impossible, but he did. So then we got the bike back, and then 2 youngsters drove it from England to Cologne. And I was stayed up all night monitoring of the big storm, and they had to stop, and they couldn't drive. And they turned up 45 minutes before the show started. We assembled the bike at the show. So it was kind of, it was a very, if you think back on it, it was great, but it was a miracle that we got it all done. And then, of course, none of the Italian journalists turned up because they hadn't been told by the factory that there was something there, because they didn't know. So all these managers and engineers from Ducati turned up at the show, and there was a bike park there. And of course, my popularity went sky high, you can imagine. And I had to watch my cappuccinos to see if there was 2 packets of rat poison in there or 1. But they got their bike, and then when they showed it on the internet, they sold out within a few hours. Actually, the service went down, and they thought it was a disaster because they had no orders. Because when they opened up, the service went down, and the whole thing crashed. But there were interesting things about it.
But right, this is one of the first offerings on the internet. It was
the first all internet offering. Now that was due to Federico Minoli, he's a great marketeer. He's a great guy who he really they built the brand. Ducati, within 2 years of them taking over, Ducati won best brand in Britain. They were more well known than Coca-Cola or anybody else. And that was basically due to these guys. They understood about the marketing part. They really did. And they did that thing. And I can probably say it now, but, there was a booklet that they came out with things from all the readers that wrote about it. I think they made half of them up. As you do when you're in marketing, So that was kind of fun. It's kind of, but I don't think anybody behind the scenes, the general public don't know. And I mean, I do know that one guy came to me. So the MH arrived at the show. I had a taxi waiting by. I was there, I'd been up all night. I was in jeans and t-shirt. And the taxi was waiting to take me to the hotel to have a shower, put on my suit and come back in time to present the bike. So one of the Italian journalists came up and he said, "Oh, you design it. You just make a few sketches and then you float in here and act all special in front of the camera." I wanted to smack.
Did you drop him? Did you punch him in the face?
Like, man, you have no idea. I'm so exhausted I can hardly see. And the 2 guys that went back, they got 2 weeks off the doctor booked them off for 2 weeks for exhaustion.
Well, this is a normal thing today.
Oh no, they get booked off before they start the project today. Sorry, guys. No, no. It was. Yeah, we got booked off. They went home. I tried to talk to them. They said no, they'd home. They couldn't come to work. But they were really exhausted. They were done.
Jesus.
3 months to do the project. Now it will take a lot longer.
Pierre, I've got two questions on that. The first thing is you've explained that you guys did that on a separate premises for the primary reason that you didn't want anybody to get involved. The question I have is that if you've only got a limited time, what gave you the confidence to go like, fuck it, we're going to try out this new software called Alias and this new methodology into when we're really up against it?
Well, I'd seen what they'd done as well. I mean, I'd known about Alias before. I saw their capabilities. And, if you don't try anything new, I mean, you carry on doing the same old thing, don't you? So, I mean, the sad thing is after we did the MHE, we never did it again. Of course, when I got back to the factory, they knew a lot better. They didn't want to use Alias. They wanted to use Pro Engineer and Unigraphics and stuff. No matter that everybody on the planet knew that it didn't really work. But, when you're authorized to be right, I always say that about companies. I think you have people in companies that are authorized to be right. And you can't argue with them. Because if you're right and you've been authorized, that's fine. That's what it's going to be. So I think the frustrating thing in big companies is that I think the people who make it big in big companies are the ones that can accept that you do a 2-week job in 4 months and live with it. If you're impatient, it's not really good because it's not going to change anything. And it's just the way it is. What did we have to lose? If you used Alias and we did it that way and it didn't work, we do it the old way anyway. We always had to fall back on.
Right.
So, yeah, it's now, of course, everybody works that way. It's normal state of the art working. But it was new then. It was really, really new. So, and Paul Chrisley, unfortunately, they shut down because, the whole world imploded, and I think they pulled a few contracts from him, and then he couldn't make it. But I don't even know what happened to that studio. It really was the best studio on the planet then. So, yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, I'm kind of in touch with Dan. What's his Abel, who's part of the yes. He's one of the Abel sons, and I mean, I think that they are. I mean, it's a bit of a struggle at the moment, but for all intents and purposes, they're still standing and still going, and I think everything's going pretty well. Futura, yes. Oh, okay, yeah. Okay, yeah.
They were absolutely. Our work there were absolutely wonderful. I mean, that was another story. I had another 3-month project because they were late. So that was the 900 SS. So I went and did it there as well. So, but they were great. That was all conventional work, play work and so on. Yeah. But they were fantastic. Great people.
Pierre, do you have a favorite project that you've worked on?
The one I'm doing now.
Is that the very latest one that nobody knows about, or is this the BST?
The one that nobody knows about. Yeah.
Okay, and when are we going to find out about that?
Just have to be a little bit more patient. I would think that in many ways, I think the BST bike I did is the best thing I've done. It's the most complete thing because I did it all new. It's all new. I mean, the only carryover is the front axle, the handlebar grips, and a few switches and the handlebars because I was running out of time. And it would never got done if I hadn't found the HP Multijet printer because I was in deep trouble. I was the only one working on it on my own. So basically, I did all the CAD work for machining. I found all the supply. I did the whole thing. And that's, it was tough.
Sorry, do you use Alias?
No. I use something called Moments of Inspiration, 3D. It's MOI, MOI, 3D.
Wow.
$300, and it's the tool. It's the hammer for somebody. It's not a elephant gun to shoot an ant.
Yes.
It's a fly swatter to kill an ant.
Okay.
So it's a wonderful technology. Anybody can learn it in like a week. And for the stuff on that bike, I did the whole bike in that, except for I needed some help on some radii, on some panels for somebody. And for the people saying, yeah, but it looks like very square, and so that's what I wanted to do. It's a fantastic tool. So I learned CAD, and I went and found the software that's the most efficient. I did a CATIA course for 2 weeks, and I thought it sucked, too complicated. When you do design, you have parametric stuff involved. People don't get it. If you want to use Alias to do a cylinder, the Alias guys don't get it because it's not even round. So you've got to use the right tools for the right job. So, that's also changed. Now we have Maya, we have Cinema 4D, all that sort of stuff. You can pull a blob into any shape you want. But for mechanical stuff, it's still better to use a NURBS type program that's simple to use. And this one is history free, so you just have to work your way around it. But incredibly quick and simple. Do all the machining from it, all the manufacturing.
And affordable.
Fantastic. Yeah. And cheap. So I never had time. I don't have time to learn Alias. I don't want to spend. It's easy to be bad at Alias. I could do that. But if you want to do Class A services, but really get somebody that really knows what they're doing, has been working for like 5, 8, 10, 15 years. It's not that simple.
Yeah.
So
it's very unintuitive, yeah.
Yeah, so I mean the thing is that project I think is a great project. And I like the hypermotard a lot. And I got super depressed after people liked it so much, because it was kind of, I'd analyzed why people didn't like the 999 so much. And I came to the conclusion that I tried to do too much. So basically what I did was, for the hypermotard, that was designed literally in a day and a half. No sketches. We were late. We had a budget to do special projects. And they said, if you don't use a budget now, you're losing the money. You won't get anything next year. So I said, okay, cool. I've got till Monday. So I went in the week and cut the subframe of a multistrada, and I mocked up the whole bike in foam core. No sketches. I just mocked it up. Sent for profile, all the packaging and so on. And by the Wednesday after that, we'd done the tank area in clay. All the rest was done on Alias. And then by doing the obvious, people loved it. And the more they loved it, the more depressed I got about it, because it was like, shit, if I'd known this, I could have aimed for the low-hanging fruit on the 999 and would have been more successful. So that taught me that you don't always have to do so much. So maybe regurgitating some of the stuff is maybe not such a bad thing. Not bad for the company. They'll sell a lot of them. But ultimately, it doesn't make designers happy, I guess. Or maybe it does. I don't know. Maybe people want to do that. It's just as long as it's not me. I don't want to do that. So.
Pierre, I'm not going to irritate you with any more questions. I will, just before we go, advice for any young people wanting to become a motorcycle designer today.
Okay, I'll tell you an interesting story about. I spoke at a college, Technikon in Cape Town, many years ago.
Kaput.
And at one point, they asked me the obvious question they always ask you: how much money do you make? What car do you drive? So I said, okay, stop. If you want to do this job to make lots of money and drive a nice car, don't. Of every 100 people that study design, maybe 1 or 2 make it, either through stupid stubbornness or luck, or their son went to university with the, I don't know, son of the chief of the company, which I've seen happen in real life. You're not going to make it. You've got to do it because you love doing it. If you love doing it and you work really, really hard enough about it, you can make it. Otherwise, don't do it. Go and do something else. Go and work in the bank. Go into finance. Do something else. And years later, probably 10 years later, I went to a party in Cape Town, and some guy walked up to me and said, "You remember you gave that lecture?" I said, "Yeah." He says, "Best advice I've ever had in my life. I've got 2 second-hand car dealerships. I'm a millionaire. And you told me not to do it if you don't have the passion, go and do something else." And he did. So he's driving nicer car than I'll ever own, got a much nicer house, and probably a wonderful wife and children, but he never became a designer. So you've got to do it because you love it. If you don't love it, don't do it, because it can be very frustrating. You do know that I'm actually 34, right?
Yes.
I just look like I'm 55.
You're younger than me.
It's all the wear and tear. It's all the wear and tear from having tried to do design.
You're younger than me then, Pierre. You're younger than me because I'm 37. So, yeah. Except you've achieved a lot more.
Yeah. But it's not easy.
No.
For all the youngsters out there, it's not an easy job. But it depends what you want out of it. When I left Royal Enfield, I said to the people, it's not that Royal Enfield is wrong for me. I'm wrong for Royal Enfield. It's not what I want to do. It's a wonderful company. You've got good fringe benefits. You've got all the equipment in the world. You've got a wonderful studio. You've got nice programs. You've got nice things to work on. But if that's what you want to do, great, do it. But if you want to aim for something else, and that something else doesn't have to be more important or better, it's just something else. So if you want to be really creative and you love what you do it. But otherwise, and it takes hard work. And all those guys out there, remember, everybody that goes through these schools are talented. They're all talented. And what is the difference between somebody who's really talented and the people that make it? There's something special there. What personal skills, how to deal with other people, or you get lucky, But that's it. It takes passion. If you want to do it, do it.
Do you see any? Sorry, I know I said that was going to be the last question, but I need to just ask. I get a lot of questions from kids in South Africa, for example, or in other places that don't necessarily have a bike design or a car design course, and I wondered, what advice would you give to somebody that feels like, oh well, I can't go and study in Italy, so there's no point. I'm just gonna do something else because there's no chance it's gonna happen.
Well, I waited 6 years to do mine. The opportunity may come. It's a choice. I mean, you could either drive a nice car and get married and have a nice family and a house in the suburbs, or you can delusionally kind of pack your things, head off for Europe, and go and try and find a spot for yourself. It's up to you. It's a choice. But if you think you can have everything on a plate, it's not going to happen. It doesn't work like that. Unless you're very, very lucky. But for South Africans, if you want it badly enough, you can do it. I mean, you can see that in many, many things that people do. Musicians or artists or designers. I'm not the only South African designer that left here. There are other people that have done it. I think I was just stupid enough and naive enough and whatever. I just got on a plane and went. I mean, who the hell does that? Me. I did it. So I think back now, I just laugh about it. Like, what was I thinking? But people were so kind, and I mean, people went out of their way to help all over. So that's also cool. People are very generous with their time. If you ask nicely enough, nobody will ever say, I'm not going to help you if you ask nicely enough. And if they do, you know what? Just think, well, maybe the guy's just had a bad day. His wife, made him sleep on the couch. I'll go and ask somebody else. And then you move on.
That's a beautiful analogy, Pierre. I thoroughly enjoyed this, and it was amazing meeting you. I've known about you for a long time. I think you were the second famous South African designer that I knew of. But it's been great to be able to finally meet you, to be honest. So, yeah, thank you very much for doing it.
Yeah. Anyway, thanks for having me.
Okay, Pierre.